cry of seagulls, the crash of waves on pebbles, the smell of vinegar and salt air. If that takes you back, you remember when holidays meant one thing: the British seaside. This was before Spain, before passports, when foreign travel happened in films, not real life. Your summer was 2 weeks in Blackpool or Brighton, and it was magical. You didn't dream of distant beaches because you didn't know they existed. This wasn't settling for less. This was everything you wanted, packed into a British summer by the sea. We're about to rediscover what holidays were like when home was exotic enough. You might just remember when Britain was paradise. 1. The great British seaside town. August bank holiday. The train pulling into Blackpool Central, packed with families clutching suitcases and excitement. You'd press your face to the carriage window, and there it was, your first glimpse of the tower piercing the sky like a steel promise of adventure. This wasn't just a destination, this was transformation. For one precious week, you weren't ordinary anymore. Every seaside town had its own personality, but they all shared the same intoxicating magic. Blackpool with its golden mile and illuminations, Brighton with its elegant pier and royal pavilion, Margate with its sandy beaches and dreamland funfair, Skegness proclaiming itself so bracing. These weren't exotic foreign resorts. They were Britain's answer to paradise, and they were yours. The moment you stepped off the train, everything changed. The air tasted different, saltier, freer, full of possibility. The sounds were different too. Instead of factory whistles and traffic, you heard fairground music drifting on the breeze, the distant roar of roller coasters, the cheerful chaos of thousands of people all determined to have the time of their lives. Working-class families saved all year for this moment, Dad's holiday money carefully hoarded in a tin on the mantelpiece, Mum planning meals and packing clothes weeks in advance. This was your annual pilgrimage to pleasure, your escape from the smoke and grime of industrial Britain into a world where fun was the only currency that mattered. The boarding houses lined the seafronts like welcoming sentries, their vacancies signs swinging in the sea breeze. Landlady proprietors who knew exactly how to turn strangers into temporary family. Entertainment that never stopped. From breakfast to bedtime, there was always something happening, always somewhere to go, always another sixpence to spend on wonder. These towns didn't just offer holidays, they offered rebirth, renewal, the chance to remember what joy felt like when it wasn't rationed by ordinary life. 2. Boarding houses and landladies. Breakfast is at 8 sharp, no exceptions. Evening meal at 6, and no sandy feet in my hallway. The voice that greeted you at the front door wasn't just setting house rules, it was establishing the rhythm of your entire holiday. Welcome to the world of the seaside boarding house, where your landlady was part drill sergeant, part surrogate mother, and absolutely in charge of your happiness. These weren't hotels with anonymous service and room keys. These were family homes open to strangers, where Mrs. Jenkins from Bognor or Mrs. Davies from Rill knew your name by tea time and your life story by Wednesday. The same families returned year after year, booking the same rooms, becoming part of an extended seaside family that existed only during those precious holiday weeks. Your room was small but spotless. Twin beds with candlewick bedspreads. A wash basin in the corner with towels thin as tissue paper but bleached white as snow. The shared bathroom down the corridor with its strict rotation schedule and warnings about not using all the hot water. This wasn't luxury, it was something better. It was belonging. Mealtimes were communal affairs around long tables in the dining room. Strangers became friends over plates of gammon and chips, sharing stories of where they'd come from and what they'd seen. The landlady presided over it all like a benevolent dictator, making sure everyone got their proper portions and nobody left hungry. More bread and butter, love? Words that made you feel at home hundreds of miles from home. The rules were strict but fair. No coming in after 11 without good reason. No noise after lights out. No mess in the rooms. But within those boundaries, you were treated like family. Your landlady knew if little Tommy had a bad tummy, if your husband preferred his tea strong, if you needed an extra blanket for the night. This wasn't just accommodation, it was temporary adoption into a seaside family that cared whether you had a good time. 3. The ritual of fish and chips on the promenade. The queue stretched halfway down the promenade, steam billowing from the shop window, the sound of batter hitting hot oil, and the satisfying sizzle that meant your dinner was being born. This wasn't just a meal, this was the sacred ritual that transformed any British seaside visit into a proper holiday. Fish and chips by the sea, eaten from newspaper, with nothing but salt air for seasoning. Harry Ramsden's, Olympia Fish Bar, or just that place on the front. Every seaside town had its legendary chip shop, the one where locals and holiday makers alike would queue without complaint. The smell hit you from 3 streets away. Crisp batter, golden chips, vinegar sharp enough to make your eyes water. Your stomach would start rumbling the moment you caught that first whiff drifting on the sea breeze. The ritual never varied. Cod or plaice, salt and vinegar, mushy peas, the man behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, face flushed from the heat, would wrap your feast in yesterday's newspaper. The ink still wet enough to leave smudges on your fingers. No plates, no cutlery, no ceremony. Just you, your family, and the finest meal money could buy, carried in paper parcels like edible treasure. You'd find your spot on the promenade, maybe a bench facing the sea, maybe the sea wall with your legs dangling over the side. The first bite was always perfect, the batter crispy and light, the fish flaking white and hot, the chips golden and fluffy inside, salt crystals crunching between your teeth, vinegar sharp and tangy, the taste of the sea mixing with the taste of heaven. This was dining at its most elemental. No fancy restaurants or foreign cuisine, just the simple perfection of fresh fish, proper chips, and the understanding that some combinations are so right, so fundamentally British, that they become sacred. You weren't just eating dinner. You were participating in a ritual as old as seaside holidays themselves. The newspaper would tear, your fingers would get greasy, and every single bit of it was absolutely, gloriously perfect. 4. Punch and Judy shows on the beach. That's the way to do it. The squeaky voice carried across the sand, drawing children like a magnet. A striped booth had appeared overnight on the beach, and suddenly the most ancient form of British entertainment was unfolding before your eyes. Punch and Judy wasn't just a puppet show. It was your first taste of theatre, comedy, and the delicious thrill of watching chaos unfold in miniature. The Punch and Judy man was part performer, part magician. One moment he was setting up his booth, the next he'd vanished behind the striped curtain, replaced by a cast of wooden characters with voices that seemed to come from another world. Mr. Punch, with his hooked nose and violent tendencies, Judy, long-suffering but never defeated, the baby that always got thrown out of the window, the crocodile with snapping jaws, the policeman who never quite caught his man. You'd gather in a semicircle on the sand, parents standing behind children who sat cross-legged and wide-eyed. The show was always the same, yet always surprising. The slapstick violence that made you gasp and giggle, the catchphrases you'd repeat for weeks afterward, the moment when Punch would lean forward and ask, "Have you seen my wife?" And everyone would shout, "She went that way," pointing in completely different directions. This was entertainment at its purest. No screens, no special effects, just one man with a box full of puppets and 400 years of tradition. The jokes were older than your grandparents', the story unchanged since Shakespeare's time, yet somehow it felt fresh and immediate and absolutely hilarious every single time. Between shows, you might catch a glimpse of the puppeteer counting his takings or adjusting a puppet's strings. The magic briefly broken, you'd see the man behind the voices, sweating in the summer heat, dedicated to keeping this ancient art alive one seaside show at a time. But when that curtain went up and Punch appeared with his first "Hello, boys and girls," the magic was complete, and you were part of something timeless. 5. Donkey rides and pier amusements. The gentle clop of hooves on sand. Donkey rides, 2 shillings a go. The cry that meant your seaside day was about to get infinitely better. A string of patient donkeys waiting on the beach, each with their own personality, their own name painted on a little wooden sign. Blackie, Daisy, Charlie, your noble steeds for a magical journey along the water's edge. These weren't just rides, they were adventures in miniature. You'd climb aboard, legs barely reaching either side, gripping the worn leather saddle while the donkey man held the reins. Then off you'd go at a stately pace that felt like galloping to a 6-year-old. The rhythm of hooves in wet sand, the donkey's ears flicking at flies, the vast expanse of beach spreading out before you like your own personal kingdom. But the real treasure was the pier, that magnificent wooden finger pointing into the sea, packed with every entertainment known to man. The moment you paid your penny and walked through those turnstiles, you entered a world where anything was possible, and everything cost just a little bit more than you had in your pocket. The penny arcade beckoned with its mechanical marvels. What the butler saw machines that promised risque glimpses but delivered innocent seaside postcards. Fortune-telling machines with mysterious gypsy heads that would dispense your destiny for a sixpence. Strength-testing machines where Dad would inevitably fail to ring the bell and blame the mechanism. One-armed bandits that occasionally surrendered a cascade of pennies, making you temporarily rich beyond your wildest dreams. The end of the pier was pure magic, the place where Britain met the infinite sea. You'd lean against the railings, watching waves crash beneath your feet, feeling like an explorer at the edge of the world. The wind would whip your hair, the salt spray would sting your face, and you'd understand why people had been coming here for generations. Every pier had its own personality, its own collection of characters and curiosities, but they all shared the same promise: wonder for sale, adventure by the hour, and memories that would last a lifetime. 6. Camping and caravan sites. The canvas city that sprouted overnight, rows of ridge tents in military precision, guy ropes creating a geometric maze that children would navigate like secret pathways. The camping field wasn't just accommodation, it was adventure headquarters, where every family became pioneers, and every night was an expedition into the unknown territory of sleeping under canvas. Your dad would arrive early to claim the perfect pitch, not too close to the toilets, but not so far you'd get lost in the dark. Level ground was gold dust. A spot with some shelter from the wind was treasure beyond measure. Then came the ritual dance of tent erection, poles and pegs, canvas and curses. The whole family enlisted in the ancient art of creating a temporary home from nothing but fabric and determination. The camping community was instant and democratic. Posh families from Surrey pitched next to miners from Yorkshire. Everyone was equal when you were sleeping on a ground sheet and cooking on a Primus stove. Children from different worlds became blood brothers within hours, united by the shared adventure of outdoor living and the delicious freedom of parents too tired from tent maintenance to enforce normal bedtime rules. The caravan sites had their own magic. Rows of gleaming aluminium homes on wheels, each one a marvel of ingenious space saving. Everything folded, everything had two purposes, everything was miniature but perfectly formed. The caravan was your castle, your secret base, your home away from home that somehow felt more exciting than real home ever did. Evening brought the camping ritual to life. Tilly lamps hissing their warm light, the smell of bacon cooking on portable stoves, families gathering around camp tables for meals that tasted infinitely better for being cooked in the open air, children running between caravans and tents until darkness finally drove them inside, where they'd fall asleep to the sound of canvas flapping and guy ropes singing in the wind. This wasn't roughing it. This was living, pure and simple, with nothing between you and the elements but your own resourcefulness and the thin comfort of canvas walls. 7. Butlins and holiday camps. Good morning, campers. The voice boomed across the compound at 7:30 sharp, followed by the cheerful blast of reveille. Welcome to Butlins, where Billy Butlin had revolutionized the British holiday by creating a place where working-class families could live like royalty for a week. If royalty enjoyed organized fun, communal dining, and red coat entertainment from dawn till dusk, the gates of Butlins were like entering another country, a self-contained world where everything was provided, everything was organized, and everything was designed to ensure you had the time of your life whether you wanted to or not. Your chalet was basic but clean, twin beds, a wash basin, and just enough space to swing the proverbial cat. But who needed luxury when paradise was waiting outside your door? The redcoats were the beating heart of it all, young men and women in their blazing scarlet jackets, armed with microphones, boundless energy, and an almost evangelical commitment to making sure every single camper was having maximum fun. They'd organize knobbly knees competitions, glamorous grandmother contests, and talent shows that discovered more hidden abilities than Britain's Got Talent ever would. The dining hall was a marvel of mass catering turned into spectacle. Hundreds of families eating together, the clatter of cutlery mixing with laughter, and the occasional burst of spontaneous singing. The food was hearty, plentiful, and exactly what you'd expect. Roast beef on Sunday, fish and chips on Friday, and puddings that could feed a small army. But the real magic happened in the ballroom. Every night, families would gather for entertainment that ranged from professional variety acts to amateur competitions where ordinary people became stars for 3 minutes. The dance floor would fill with couples who'd met that morning and felt like they'd known each other for years. Children would watch wide-eyed from the sidelines, absorbing lessons in performance, confidence, and the beautiful democracy of shared entertainment. Butlins wasn't just a holiday, it was a glimpse of what Britain could be when class barriers dissolved in the face of collective fun and genuine human warmth. 8. Day trips and charabanc outings. The motor coach pulling up outside the factory gates, streamers fluttering from the windows, a hand-painted banner declaring Woolwich Works annual outing stretched across the front. This wasn't just transport. This was your chariot to adventure, your ticket to a world beyond the terraced streets and smoking chimneys of home. The charabanc was a thing of beauty and barely controlled chaos, open-topped, with bench seats running sideways, no seat belts, and absolutely no concern for health and safety regulations that wouldn't be invented for another 30 years. You'd pile in with your workmates, your neighbors, your entire street sometimes, all dressed in your Sunday best and determined to make the most of your precious day of freedom. The journey was half the fun. Singing started before you'd cleared the town limits. She'll be coming round the mountain, pack up your troubles. Songs that everyone knew and nobody could remember learning. The driver would join in when traffic permitted, his voice booming over the engine noise as the countryside rolled past in a blur of green fields and possibility. Factory outings were sacred traditions. The mill workers heading to Blackpool, the dockers bound for Brighton, the miners making their annual pilgrimage to the sea. For one day, the rigid hierarchies of working life dissolved. The foreman sat next to the shop floor sweeper. The secretary shared sandwiches with the tea lady. Everyone was equal in their determination to squeeze every ounce of pleasure from their daylight hours of escape. The destinations were always the same: seaside towns within charabanc range, chosen for their ability to provide maximum entertainment per shilling spent. You'd arrive with a plan. First, fish and chips at 1 o'clock, donkey rides for the children, maybe a quick pint for the adults, photographs by the professional photographer to prove you'd been there. But the real treasure wasn't the destination. It was the journey shared, the memories made, the understanding that sometimes the best adventures were the ones taken together, packed shoulder to shoulder in an open-topped bus with people who understood exactly why this day mattered so much. 9. The British weather and making the best of it. The grey clouds rolling in from the sea, the first fat raindrops hitting the promenade. The universal British response, well, at least it's not cold. This was the moment that separated true British holidaymakers from fair-weather tourists when the weather turned, and you discovered what your family was really made of. Out came the Macintoshes, handed down through generations like family heirlooms. The windbreakers that never quite broke enough wind but made you feel prepared for Arctic expeditions. The plastic rain hoods that your mum tied under your chin with the efficiency of someone who'd been through this dance 1,000 times before. You weren't retreating, you were adapting. The deck chair became your fortress against the elements. Striped canvas stretched over metal frames, positioned with military precision to catch every available ray of sunshine while deflecting the worst of the wind. Your dad would spend an hour adjusting angles, creating elaborate windbreaks from blankets and newspapers, constructing a microclimate of determined optimism in the face of meteorological reality. The sight was magnificent in its absurdity. Hundreds of British families lined up along the beach, wrapped in layers of clothing that would be appropriate for November in Scotland, steadfastly reading newspapers in horizontal rain, children building sandcastles with blue lips and chattering teeth, parents sipping tea from thermos flasks while waves crashed dangerously close to their carefully arranged picnic spots. "It's brightening up," someone would always say, pointing to a patch of sky that was marginally less grey than the rest. And somehow, through sheer force of collective will, it often did brighten up. The sun would break through just long enough to justify the entire expedition. Coats would come off, spirits would soar, vindication would be complete. This wasn't stubbornness, this was character, the peculiarly British ability to snatch victory from the jaws of meteorological defeat, the understanding that weather couldn't be controlled, but attitude could be. The wisdom that came from generations of refusing to let a bit of rain ruin a perfectly good holiday. You didn't just survive British weather, you conquered it, one determined deck chair session at a time. Which of these memories feels closest to your own family's summer rituals? Was it the magic of Butlin's red coats, or the simple pleasure of deck chairs in defiance of British weather? Maybe your holidays were spent somewhere we haven't mentioned, those special places that made your childhood summers complete. Share your seaside stories in the comments below, because these memories deserve to live on, to remind us that sometimes the greatest adventures happen closest to home. And if this journey back to simpler summers stirred something in you, subscribe for more trips into the Britain that shaped us all. Let's keep these coastal memories alive together.